Welcome to Kansas Ag Report. I'm Ken Rogers. On this week's report, we review the Kansas wheat crop tour that just took place a couple of days ago with Aaron Harries of Kansas Wheat. We'll also have features from the Kansas Soybean Commission, Kansas Department of Agriculture, and the Kansas Grain Sorghum, along with the weekly update from the Kansas Livestock Association and market information from Pinion.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots ag organization representing the state's farm and ranch families since 1919, kfb.org. And the Kansas Wheat Commission, lending in the adoption of profitable innovations from wheat, online at kswheat.com.
In agricultural information, Kansas State University has launched a project to bring together two of its strongest agriculture programs under one roof. The university held a groundbreaking ceremony May 17th for the Global Center for Grain and Food Innovation, to be located at the corner of Claflin Road and Mid-Campus Drive on the Manhattan campus. The new building, estimated for completion in fall of 2026, connects Weber and Call Halls. They're both undergoing renovations as well. It will also bring faculty and staff from the departments of animal science, including food science and grain science, together, allowing them to work side by side on more projects. K-State's Department of Grain Science and Industry offers the country's only undergraduate degree in milling science, bakery science, and feed and pet food processing. In fact, it's one of only a few in the entire world to do so. And the department reports 100% job placement rate for those in those degree programs. The Department of Animal Science and Industry, also highly regarded, having been tabbed last fall as the country's #1 agriculture science program by College Raptor. Also, Scholar GPS placed K-State Animal Science program in the top 10 among U.S. colleges. K-State President Richard Linton called May 17th a big day for the College of Agriculture, a historic day for K-State, and transformational day for Kansas agriculture and the agriculture and food industry stakeholders. Get ready, he said. Things are going to feel different at K-State. The agriculture impact locally and globally will reach new heights because of the project. Linton pointed to the entirety of the Agriculture Innovation Initiative, which creates 4 new buildings and 3 remodeled spaces. Students can expect larger, more accessible classrooms outfitted with the latest technology and suitable for remote learning. There also will be a unique learning spaces like the Arena Pavilion and a pilot plant, as well as a test kitchen. He said this is an achievement that we all should take pride in. Well, a great way to build demand for beef is to understand what consumers currently prefer when it comes to protein. That's why the Beef Checkoff and others continue to support consumer demand research on both the national and state level. One such research project is the Meat Demand Monitor. It's funded in part by the Beef and Pork Checkoffs. Dr. Lynn Tonzer, professor of Ag Economics at K-State, has been the lead researcher since its inception in early 2020. The MDM is a monthly report of current trends, consumption habits, and preferences collected from a nationwide survey. All the data from each month is published on agmanager.info alongside a summary of the results. Current data has shown that many households are pessimistic about their finances moving forward. And New Economic Research Service reports the cost of soybean seed per acre has risen more than 260% since 1997, while total soybean production costs have risen 157%. In 1997, U.S. farmers spent an average of $19.72 an acre on soybean seed, the report said. That expense rose by more than 260% by 2023, when U.S. farmers were spending $71.03 an acre just on soybean seed. The agency says much of that cost incurred between 1997 and 2010, when seed costs increased by some 200%. Much of that cost increase for soybean seed came about because of technological advancements, including changes in planting methods, seeding technology, as well as seed quality. Now, in the mid-90s, seed companies began selling genetically engineered soybean seed to farmers, the report said. Regional adaptation rates in 1997 were between 8 and 21%. By 2002, rates jumped from 60 to 96%. We'll talk the future of the Kansas wheat crop. We continue here on the Kansas Ag Report.
The Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Grain Sorghum, growers working together. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. grassandgrain.com.
And joining us is Aaron Harries, who is the Vice President of Operations and Research at Kansas Wheat. Aaron, we're going to talk about the annual Wheat Quality Council Tour, just wrapped up a few days ago. What were the general overall observations?
Well, it's going to be a better crop than last year. That's not hard to do. 2003 was not good, as I think everybody knows. But ultimately, it's still going to be below average. You know, we try to get an average crop around 310 million bushels, and what our tour educated guess was 290.4 million bushels. Obviously, drought is still the underlying story. I think the difference this year is there'll be a lot more acres harvested, not as many abandoned, because the wheat crop got a better start in the fall, whereas last year, you know, from day one, it just wasn't there. Unfortunately, that means that farmers had to watch the crop go downhill the last few months, but a lot more acres harvested.
Well, it seemed like, I would say, you talked to a farmer 8 weeks ago, a lot of optimism, and then as the days moved on, the hot winds came, a little severe weather, but anyway, some rains recently has helped boost some prospects. But I guess, Aaron, we can go into specifics here in a little bit, but I was able to go around that kind of the northern part of south central Kansas, and I was surprised really at the shape of that crop, that it was very thin, very short, because typically that's some of our better wheat.
Yeah, and I particularly specifically went on a route through central Kansas, through I think the hardest hit drought area from Gypsum, Lindsborg, Great Bend up to Harries, and it's stressed, short, thin wheat, and zero moisture in the soil, just nothing there. I think some of the better wheat in the state is going to be that Highway 36 corridor, north central through northwest Kansas. Have really caught some timely rains recently. Western Kansas, again, I went to the western tier and southern tier, and it's dry, and you know, the wheat gets a little bit better towards Pratt and Wichita, but you know, being able to get out there and harvest the most acres, more acres, I think is at least a little bit of morale boost.
Now, the one thing we are dealing a challenge with is some stripe rust, and stripe rust really has come to a lot more counties than what maybe we had hoped.
Yeah, it's spread pretty rapidly with these recent rains, and it's pretty intense in some areas. And the question, you know, does the economics call for spraying the fungicide? And there had been a lot of wheat being sprayed, but we're getting a little late in the game too. You can't spray fungicides after a certain date, and we should mention this crop's ahead of schedule, probably to 7 to 10 days ahead of schedule across most of the state. We'll be probably test cutting south of Wichita, maybe June 5th in that area. So yeah, it's going to sneak up on us pretty quickly. Also, saw a lot of freeze damage this year. You know, the advanced stage of that wheat crop being ahead of schedule, when we had some really cold events in late March, it did zap a little bit of that. Always hard to judge the impact in terms of bushels, but it is pretty visible.
Aaron Harries, Kansas Wheat, is joining us. We're talking about the recent Wheat Quality Council Hard Red Winter Wheat Tour. We'll take a break. Come back with more in just a moment.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Livestock Association, supporting members' business interests and meeting consumer demands. KLA.org. Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Find them on the web at oldieseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. And Kansas Corn, building the future at kansascorn.com. And Aaron Harries from Kansas Wheat is joining us. We're reviewing the Wheat Quality Council Hard Red Winter Wheat Tour. I believe, 66th, I think. So been going on for quite a
Long
while.
time, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to talk maybe a little bit some of the good spots, maybe some of the challenging spots, but the number that came out, me and others, probably need a little refresher that it kind of popped a little higher than those of us in certain areas that saw what the wheat looked like. So talk about how we come up with that yield number.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're traveling in 6 different routes across the state, and we collect individual yields along those paths. And at the end of day 1, we average that all together and report that average yield for the day. So we do that day 1, day 2, day 3, and we ended up with the 3-day total average of 46.5. And people were saying, well, that's awfully high. But keep in mind, that's not a weighted average. So, we don't apply the lower average, by acres. And so there might have been a lot more acres that are in that 30 bushel range instead of the 60 bushel range. So basically, we're telling folks, don't focus too much on that average, focus on the final number, because that's when the tour participants take into account acreage abandonment and what they think the yield per acre is going to be, and multiply that times harvested acre. That's where we get that 290.4 million bushels harvested. So you just got to do a little backwards math on your own and come up with your own estimate on average yield per acre. I would be shocked if we get that high in the state of Kansas this year.
Right, it's going to be a challenge, but then again, it's going to be here before we know it, as we talked about. Many folks said, hey, we're that's 7 to 10 days ahead. Mother Nature is going to have a big thing to do with that. We need some good fill weather for one thing. Okay, so Aaron, were there some areas that really jumped out? These tours go crisscrossing the state, so you don't focus one day, say, on South Central, one day in North Central and Northwest. So were there some spots that kind of everybody found the same thing, and maybe some good places and some ones that are going to be a challenge?
Well, yeah, and more variability. I know we keep saying variability on this tour than I think most. Highway 36 corridor, North Central, Northwest Kansas, some really good wheat along that route there, and that probably, threw out the average bias a little bit. Central Kansas that was dry. And I think what stood out to me is just no subsoil moisture, and even topsoil moisture just goes down about 2 or 3 inches. So we're really spoon feeding this crop water, and it's maybe too late for some of it. So, it was pretty uniform in the western third of the state, I think, and our path south from Colby to Garden City. Not a lot of great spots, not a lot of terrible spots. And I think once you turn back east, it's variable again. If you picture going across the southern third of Kansas, the northern half of that is pretty dry and tough. You get the Pratt and Harper line east of there. They've caught some rains recently, especially around Wichita, up back towards McPherson. Good wheat there, but you don't have to go too much further west than that, Hutchinson area, and it goes downhill really fast. So it is tough to assign bushels per acre in the state this year, because you can't break it down just by central Kansas or north central Kansas. It's divided within those regions too.
Okay, Aaron. Well, and I know as harvest gets rolling, Kansas Wheat will also have harvest reports, so people can follow along as well. And thanks for sharing the numbers and the ideas of this wheat tour. It's always good to kind of be on the tail end of it, kind of watching after the end of the days and interacting with some of the folks that are on there. It's people not necessarily that are farmers. There are a few farmers along, but people in the industry. And so it's always good to help. It's a good educational experience as well.
It is, because people who are maybe behind a desk in Washington, D.C., who never see a wheat field but make decisions based on wheat for us, they get out there and see that. So I think it really does benefit in the end.
Very good, thank you. Aaron Harries, who is Vice President of Operations as well as Research with Kansas Wheat, has joined us. We will take a break and come back with more in just a moment.
Anything I can help you locate today?
Yeah, I'm looking for some grass seed, but I can never figure out which type to buy.
At Premier Farm at Home, you can pick your grass seed out of a field instead of off a shelf.
Really? You can do that?
At Premier you can.
That'd be great.
Let me take you to our plots.
Everyone has lawn problems. At Premier Farm and Home, we see it as an opportunity to earn your trust.
This is so helpful.
Only place in the Midwest.
With each problem we help you solve, you'll gain confidence and find that no one can take care of your lawn like you can.
At the end of May, K-State will host the largest youth conference in the state of Kansas, the 96th Kansas FFA Convention, and many members of the Kansas Department of Agriculture team will be there. The state convention is an opportunity to celebrate the impact FFA makes in the lives of students in communities throughout Kansas, and to recognize the leadership and skills being developed through this valuable educational program. Many KDA employees are proud to be former FFA members or parents, and several of us help with FFA activities every year, including the state convention. KDA is committed to supporting ag education and FFA throughout the state, because we know that today's ag ed students are tomorrow's agriculture leaders and agriculture workforce. Kansas FFA is dedicated to creating a new generation of agriculturalists through the experiences students have in agriculture education classes. And ag education in Kansas schools combines classroom instruction with experiential service and work-based learning through supervised agricultural experience programs, known as SAEs, that give students hands-on experiences in workplace settings in their communities. FFA also provides a critical leadership component, including training in public speaking, parliamentary procedure, and current ag issues. Agriculture education prepares students for successful careers and a lifetime of informed choices in the global agriculture, food, fiber, and natural resource systems. KDA is proud to support Kansas FFA, which is at the forefront of preparing students for premier leadership, personal growth, and career success across the agriculture industry. For more information about FFA or ag education in Kansas, go to our website at agriculture.ks.gov/aged.
Grain sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
Planters are rolling. What can soybean growers expect for 2024? The National Agricultural Statistics Service expects soybean acreage in Kansas to reach 4.25 million acres for the year, a decrease of about 4% from 2023. NASS anticipates a total soybean crop value of $1.32 billion, significantly decreased from the previous marketing year, projects an average $12.60 per bushel, down $1.70 from the previous marketing year. Price impacts mean the on-farm grain stocks of 23.5 million bushels are up 57% from this time last year. Already in 2024, weather maps from USDA indicate abnormally dry conditions unfolding over the spring, but project lessening of drought conditions as the year progresses. Outside of price and weather outlooks for the year, growers should be giving thought to their crop management plans for 2024. Growers have a valuable resource in the K-State Research and Extension and K-State Agronomy Services. KSRE's current Insect Pest Management Guide lists common pests and peak environmental conditions for infestation and offers guidance for insecticides in the marketplace. The updated Chemical Weed Control Guide walks growers through proper use of available chemistries as well as critical characteristics about herbicide products. The Herbicides for Soybeans section grades various herbicides on their ability to manage key weeds and provides tips for and limitations of the products. Both guides are available through the KSRE bookstore as digital PDFs or requested print copies. K-State agronomic experts advise growers to consider how high winds and wind erosion can impact off-target movement of herbicides, especially early in the crop season when fields may have low vegetative cover. Further guidance on herbicide use, resistance, and safety are available from the Take Action program at iwilltakeaction.com.
What does a brighter, more sustainable future look like in our cities and towns, and how do we get there? When New York needed an alternative fuel source to reduce carbon emissions, the city found what it needed in biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil.
It's now time for the Kansas Sorghum Update, brought to you by the Kansas Sorghum Commission. Over the past few weeks, planting season has begun for sorghum growers across Kansas. For the week ending May 17th, Kansas sorghum planted was 13%, near 2023's 11%, and above the 8% national average. Today, we're bringing you an updated schedule for the upcoming Sorghum Connection series, so be sure to update your calendars with the following dates and locations. September 4th in Bavaria, Kansas, September 11th in Dighton, Kansas, and September 18th in Russell, Kansas. The Kansas Grain Sorghum Commission looks forward to partnering with K-State Research and Extension for the inaugural Sorghum Connection Series events, so be sure to stay tuned to our media outlets for more information this summer. The Kansas Grain Sorghum Commission would also like to applaud Kansas State University's College of Agriculture as K-State hosted a groundbreaking ceremony last week to commemorate the construction of the Global Center for Grain and Food Innovation, which will serve as the new homes for the animal science, food science, and grain science programs. The new facilities with innovative technology will allow for students to experience increased hands-on learning opportunities while simultaneously fulfilling the university's goal of becoming the next-gen land-grant university. We look forward to seeing what possibilities lie ahead for future generations of agriculturalists. Thank you, and stay tuned for next time.
What if U.S. soybean meal were more than a commodity? If seed companies and the soybean checkoff built a better variety? That future is here. The time is now. To meet end-user demands, the soybean checkoff is investing in the compositional quality of soybeans, including meal. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Applications for the 2024 Kansas Leopold Conservation Award are due June 1st. Landowners are encouraged to nominate themselves, or applications may be submitted on behalf of a landowner. To apply, go to ranchlandtrustofkansas.org and click on Events and News. Given in honor of renowned conservationist Aldo Leopold, the $10,000 award recognizes and celebrates extraordinary achievement in voluntary conservation by agricultural landowners. In Kansas, the award is presented by the Ranchland Trust of Kansas, Sand County Foundation, Kansas Association of Conservation Districts, and American Farmland Trust. Barth Crouch, Ranchland Trust of Kansas Board Chairman, said it is RTK's honor and privilege to help recognize Kansas ranchers and farmers who go above and beyond the standard in stewardship of the natural resources they manage daily. Applications will be reviewed by an independent panel of Kansas agricultural and conservation leaders. The 2024 award will be presented in November at the Kansas Association of Conservation Districts annual convention. The Kansas Leopold Conservation Award is made possible thanks to the Farm Credit Associations of Kansas, ITC Great Plains, Kansas Department of Agriculture Division of Conservation, Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks, Kansas Forest Service, McDonald's, the Nature Conservancy in Kansas, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, Green Cover Seed, and a Kansas Leopold Conservation Award recipient.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Good morning. This is Jacob Herzog with Pinion Risk Management. Now, here we are entering the time of the year that we're statistically the most likely, although obviously never guaranteed, to have some of the best opportunities in regards to marketing. The time of the year where the market will be pushed and pulled by seemingly every headline. Now, wheat has rallied drastically, led primarily by the French wheat futures contract. Domestically, soft red wheat areas honestly all look pretty darn good, and at this point, a bumper crop is to be expected. Now, the hard red wheat areas look either pretty rough to average. Obviously here the main story is in Russia and eastern Ukraine, continuing to be damaged by drought and freezing temperatures, with little relief in the forecast. Now, all this being said, mind us all, we're still looking at a very burdensome stocks number. Down south, in South America, continue to battle floods in the mostly harvested Rio Grande do Sul region, and traders continue to make bets as to how many beans may potentially be lost. Domestically, in the eastern Corn Belt, producers have been getting planted, albeit a little bit behind last year's progress. And, like every year, there are some areas getting a lot more rain than others. And there are pockets that have experienced top-end yield loss at this point. The last time we had a planting delay rally was 2019. And while yield for some was disappointing, overall yield was still pretty close to the January USDA estimate that year. And ever since then, traders have been pretty resistant to trade planting delay news. Now, like I said this time, this is where rubber meets the road. Now, it might be a little controversial for some, but in my opinion, following the details of every market story in an effort to divine market direction actually helps very little when it comes to marketing. What matters is that you have a plan, that you have a diversity of decision-making tools at your disposal, and that you've learned something new from last year. Now, if you would like to talk to somebody about a plan, you can reach us at 888-452-8751. I'm Jacob Herzog with Pinion Risk Management.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
That'll do it for our program today. Thank you so much for joining us. Be social with us online, KansasAgReport.net, or our social media channels. It is Memorial Day weekend. We hope you have time to pause and reflect and remember those who gave the ultimate sacrifice so we can enjoy the freedoms each and every day here in the United States of America. I'm Ken Rogers. We'll see you next week on the Kansas Ag Report.
Many seed companies claim to offer the latest genetics, but how many have tested those genetics in soils just like yours? The Oldie Seed Know to Grow research program has fully tested the latest seed genetics in soils that are right in your neighborhood. The Oldie Seed Know to Grow program can recommend the best performing hybrids from technologies like Enlist, Extend, and Liberty Link that will optimize the yield and profit of every acre on your farm. Contact Oldie Seed today.
Imagine turning soybean oil, used cooking oils, and waste animal fats into fuel so amazing it drives U.S. jobs and our economy forward. Learn more about biodiesel at americasadvancedbiofuel.com.